Our next speaker is Micki McDonough, and this tells me that her journey, she describes her journey as 74 years of eye, heart, and mind-opening experiences. You have to be lying, 74, right? Okay, she's not lying. Let's hear what she has to say. Welcome, Micki.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everybody. So, this is a story about secrets. Starts a long time ago. I was so excited when my little sister Nancy was born in March of 1959. I was 11 at the time. I had two younger brothers, Ed and Bill, and I thought you were both annoying. I'm sorry if you're watching. And my mother said, we now have the perfect family. I have two boys and two girls, and they're each 3 to 4 years apart. So I was thinking, well, I didn't know what Catholic roulette was at the time, but I've since found out, that we call that rhythm now. And it seemed to work very well for them up to a point. So I was surprised when about 14 months later, I saw my mother in a maternity outfit. I was surprised, I was excited, I was kind of shocked. But anyway, it turned out being good because I was told that I would finally have the honor of naming this new sibling. So by that time, my last name's McDonough. I was very into being Irish, so I picked Maureen as the girl name. I honestly don't remember what I picked as the boy name, but it was probably something like Liam or, something like that. I also remember that the projected birth date of my new sibling was going to be like late September or early October. And I was really happy about that because I'm a Libran. And I'm like, oh, this new sibling is going to be a Libra also. All right, so fast forward, I guess it would be, I don't know, maybe 5 months later. It was October 4th, 1960. Mom and Dad are going off to the hospital, something about water breaking. By that point, I had just turned 12. So, my parents felt that I could supervise the younger siblings, and my grandparents lived very close by. So in case of an emergency, I was able to call them. So later that night on October 4th, my dad called, and he seemed very sad and was very serious and said, there's something wrong with Maureen. First I'm like, girl. But this has to be between you and me. Neither of us can tell anyone that something is wrong with your sister until we take her to the family doctor and he confirms whatever her condition is. All right. So 9 days later, it was October 13th, 1960. I was in grade school, but I also knew that it was the 9th game of the World Series, Pirates against Yankees. Keep that in mind, October 13th, 1960. I have to admit that I come from a long line of baseball fanatics. My grandfather coached a sandlot team in the 30s and 40s, and told me that his team actually played the Homestead Grays, and my mom was thrilled that she had actually met Josh Gibson. So that's a little aside there, but okay. So I was in grade school, and for some reason that particular year I had to walk home from school. We got a ride to school, but for some reason I had to walk home. And it was literally almost all uphill, a mile. And so school is dismissed. All my schoolmates are running into their parents' cars. I hear the car radio on, and it was like, you know, in retrospect now, I'm thinking it was probably the 8th inning of that 9th game of the 7th game, I'm sorry, of the World Series, and it seemed like the Pirates were losing, but that there was a hitting streak at that time, and they might pull ahead. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm missing all of this. I'm missing this. So I'm trudging along, and I get to the big steep hill. It was maybe 10 minutes later, and I'm just not looking forward to it at all. But all of a sudden, I hear horns beeping, pots banging, people yelling, and I'm like, oh, great, I missed this. I gotta get home. So I'm like rushing up the hill, sweating. But I looked over and I saw my family's car drive by. And I'm like, wait, this was the day that my parents were taking my baby sister Maureen to the family doctors to find out, you know, what her condition was. So I had way more motivation then, like to make it up that hill, record time. Thank you, Bill Mazeroski, but rushing up the hill. I get to my street. Kids are on bicycles. Remember, this was 1960, so there were mothers out there with aprons on, babies in strollers, and I was kind of just experiencing like I don't know how to describe this. I was feeling so many things at that time. I was like so excited that the Pirates had won the World Series. I was so relieved that I didn't have to keep this secret anymore. Obviously, it was out now. Some people knew, you know, my family knew. But I was also really kind of scared and anxious about what I was going to find when I walked in the door. So I walked in the door. I think I was the only sibling there at the time, and plus the others were very young. And so my sister's diagnosis was, well, we call it now Down syndrome, but back then the terminology was mongoloid, right? Yeah, if you remember. So I admit that my sister Maureen, when she was a baby, she was a little strange looking, but by the time she was 6 months old, she was just stunning. She was so cute. She was so adorable, so lovely. And she seemed to progress pretty normally. She was walking by the time she was 13 months old. Yeah. So I can say for a fact that this little girl, she transformed our entire family. My mom became an advocate for children with disabilities. She was instrumental in starting a preschool for children with disabilities. My sister Nancy, I'm not sure if she's watching now, but we all know you were just so cute and adorable. She became a fierce defender of our sister, even to the point of getting into fistfights with you know, some of her other kids who made fun of Maureen. Side note, my sister Nancy insists that Maureen knew the alphabet and how to spell her name before she did, because Maureen went to preschool and my sister Nancy did not. Yeah. My brothers, Ed and Bill, were very, very protective of Maureen, but honestly, the whole entire neighborhood loved her, especially when she would go door to door and invite people to spaghetti dinner. And another side note, sorry, Mom, you were a terrible cook. So a little side story about Maureen, even though this story is really about secret keeping and how that impacts us, but I do have to spend some time talking about my sister's love of beer. She was about 3, and my family had a cottage at Conneaut Lake, and still does. And my dad decided then that he was going to help paint the trim, you know, above the porch roof. So he put up a ladder. He also poured a glass of beer. He climbed up the ladder. He was up there for a while painting, came back down. The beer was gone. I'm sure, I think I do remember him saying, "Who drank my beer?" But we were all too young. So So I guess well, maybe a neighbor came over and drank it, I don't know. So he got a refill, he poured more in, he walked up the stairs again, was up there for a while painting, came back down, and again, the glass was empty. And then I looked and I saw Maureen, age 3, rolling around in the grass and laughing hysterically. So, all right, so that's a funny story, but so she's definitely Irish. I do want to spend just a minute talking about, though, the relationship between my mother and Maureen was very unique, because I remember when my baby sister was an infant, and probably till she was about 6 months old, my mother went to morning mass every day. And she confided in me that she thought maybe she did something wrong in her life, that she was being given this challenge as a way to make up, which, you know, I didn't understand then and I still don't understand now. But, you know, I do remember thinking then, does my mom have a secret too that, you know, she really didn't tell us about? And she and my sister had an extremely unique relationship. Like Maureen somehow knew that my mother was devoted to her, but there was somehow a conflict there. And she used it. She did. Like, she knew how to get on my mother's nerves way better than any of us ever did. So, all right. So I wanted to spend a little time talking about her, because if you would ask any of my siblings who was the most crucial and important person in your development, it would be Maureen. Like, there's no question about it. Okay, so how did my being asked to keep such a heavy secret impact my life? You know, this exercise in storytelling has caused me to really think about that. I can tell you, I'm 99.9% sure that not once in my life, if someone said to me, "This has to stay between you and me," did I ever breach that confidence. I'm also a social worker, and I knew from a very early age that I wanted to be involved in a profession that helped people. I don't know if it had to do with the secret keeping, or if it had to do with my sister having Down syndrome. I'm not really sure, and you know, I don't really think it matters at this point. But everything you read about secret keeping in families says it's a bad thing. It's destructive. You know, families need to really talk about and divulge their secrets. But on some level, I think that my dad asking me to keep this made me feel responsible. You know, it kind of made me feel like I'm a big person. I can really handle this. I was kind of proud that he thought enough of me to ask me, really, you know. I also feel that this secret keeping, and it wasn't for a very long period of time, but actually gave me some confidence about my own resilience and my ability to handle kind of bad news, you know, on a certain level. And taught me, in retrospect, because I've gone through this experience of storytelling, that it is really important, even when we're sad and had bad news and things could end up being tragic, that it's still really important to be able to recognize those moments of joy, you know, like the Bill Mazeroski home run, and that we shouldn't feel bad about that. You know, in fact, it's a way to reconnect with people, it gives us hope. So on the downside, though, I wonder sometimes if I'm like too willing to share burdens that I really shouldn't, or maybe even carry other people's bags of garbage. I do kind of wonder about that. You might wonder, did I ever talk with my parents about this? Honestly, it might surprise you, but I don't remember. I don't remember if I ever discussed it with them. Maybe I was just so relieved not have to worry about this anymore that I just kind of forgot about it. Yeah, I don't know. You may also wonder, why would my dad ask a 12-year-old to carry this burden? And I'm not going to lie, you know, that question briefly has crossed my mind a couple times, but I have not dwelled on it, and my dad is not here to explain himself, so it's, you know, to me it's really not that important. I should tell you that Maureen is no longer with us. She died a little over a year and a half ago from COVID. She was fully vaccinated, but was taking medication that depressed her immune system. But she waited for all of us, the rest of the siblings, to be there, and we gave her a send-off of an Irish wake with lots of beer. And I'm sure she would have enjoyed that, and I sometimes think maybe she did hang around a little while, you know, to enjoy with us before she moved on. So I will forever thank you, Bill Mazeroski, for that walk-off homer in the 9th inning. You helped me make that trudge up that steep hill in record time. You also introduced me to cardio, although I didn't know that's what it was called then, and taught me, in retrospect now, and I really thank you, Pam, for giving me the opportunity to really think about this, that you can still experience joy during times of sadness, and it's not something, as I said before, we should feel guilty about. We need these moments to rejuvenate and to reconnect. But I do want to end by saying I know my story is not unique. All of us are products of families who have experienced sadness and loss, tragedy, and even secrets. I hope, though, in the future I will do a better job of encouraging other people that are going through rough times and sadness and tragedy to kind of take advantage. You don't pass up those moments, even if they're momentary, of joy. All right. That's my story. Thanks.